Hey y'all, welcome back to From Trust to Trauma, Dating My Therapist, part 13. She was just like, well, I have a list on Zillow and I am sending you them now. So while I'm driving, you're going to be looking at them. So we end up looking at quite a few different properties. Some I like, some I didn't. And I was just like, well, I mean, to be honest, like, I don't even have the credit for this. I don't even have the income for this. And she was just like, Dream, I know that. That's why I'm going to put it in my business name. And I'm like, okay, I'm not understanding. She was just like, I'm going to get the property. You're going to turn it into an Airbnb. You're going to take your furniture out of the storage and you're going to furnish the house with the Airbnb. For the Airbnb. And you're going to turn a profit. And I was just like, this bitch might be a little smart. So she was really good with solutions. She would, for a moment, she might be stuck and then she'll be like, all right, bet, this is what we're going to do. She was always like that. Even though I viewed it as impulsive and it was scary, she had no care in the world. Like, she was a go-getter. Like, when I tell you, like, no fear whatsoever. So we end up getting to this one place. It was like a tower, like, apartment or whatever. So many different floors. And when we went inside, y'all, it was beautiful. Whew. Like, when you first go inside, it puts you in mind of a really nice hotel, like, lobbies type situation. They had, like, the whole coffee, like, bar situation. They had the outside where you can sit around and grill, and the waterfall patio situation. They had a pool table in another room. It was phenomenal, y'all. I'm like, this is it right here. We ended up viewing the actual apartment and it was beautiful. Like, it had like the whole view of the city. It was surrounded by like restaurants, bars. It was like the perfect hot spot. And I was just like, yo, this shit gonna go. So we ended up meeting with the apartment manager and we're like, hey, like, do y'all do corporate leasing? And they're like, yeah, we actually do. Some of our residents are actually in corporate leasing. They have like short-term leasing up in here. And I'm like, oh, come on with it. So Kay sits down, you know what I'm saying? And she ends up like applying for the apartment. She, you know, makes it seem as though she lives here or whatever, and I was going to be listed as the person that was going to be managing it. So that part was working out pretty good, right? So while she's doing that, I started to leave out the room and I started to, the office or whatever, I started to look around a little bit. So as I do, I had passed by this office, and so a girl was like, hey, excuse me. And I looked back and she was just like, hey girl. And I was like, hey girl. This was somebody I used to go to school with. So when I seen her, I was super excited. I was like, girl, hey. She's like, what you doing here? You live? I was like, oh no, we're actually looking at getting an apartment here. She's like, really? So that'll be good. Like, it's real cool around here. You know, I'm the security here. I was like, really? She was like, yeah, girl, me and my mom works here. We both do security. And I was like, that's what's up. And I was like, yeah, I was thinking about getting an apartment here because I was wanting to do Airbnb. And she was like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. And she was like, well, girl, like, that's what's up. She was just like, it's some people that already do it here. And I was like, yeah, I heard. And she was like, well, if you ever need help, girl, let me know because me and my mom got a cleaning business. And I was like, girl, shut up. Because put your number on my phone. Because at this point, it's giving it's meant to be. Like, wait, so I can get an Airbnb in a hotspot, manage it, don't have to clean it. Baby, sign me up. So Kay finishes with what she's doing. I tell her about me meeting up with my old classmate and what she said. So Kay is like, okay, hell yeah. Like, that's lit. Like, that's perfect. So we end up finishing up with that. She had put in the appointment, not the appointment, but the application. And that was that. So we had waited like weeks. And we had been calling up, following up. And them folks would never follow up. We ended up talking to the manager of the manager, like, still no follow up. And we just like, at this point, it seemed like it just fell through. And so I'm like feeling like, you know, kind of giving up on it. Like, okay, whatever. It just, maybe it's not meant to be, you know? So we didn't completely give up. We kept riding around looking at different buildings and apartments and stuff like that until we came across one that was like a tower as well. It was super duper nice. It had like a rooftop situation, and it had like city view that was wrapped around the building. Like when I tell y'all, it was fire. But it was super expensive, and so that meant that the profit margin wasn't going to be that great to do Airbnb with. However, it was still in that same hot spot that the other one was in. But I just knew it wasn't going to be a good fit for Airbnb. Plus, they didn't allow it. So we decided to end our search for the night, and we were just going to, you know, just wait it out and wait for them to contact us back, the previous apartment that we had applied for. So a couple days later, Kay had called me and told me that she had booked a tour at the apartment. And I was just like, well, what apartment? She was like, well, remember the one that I was looking at, the last one? And I was like, with the one that with the rooftop that was expensive? She was like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. She was like, I'm actually on the way to Birmingham now because I have a tour in like, you know, in an hour. And I was just like, well, why you didn't tell me? I could have, you know, got prepared, got dressed or whatever. And she was like, I mean, you still can go if you want to or whatever, but, you know, I don't know, that want to type thing made me feel like she just wanted to go without me or whatever. Maybe she just wanted to go ahead and handle business as such. And honestly, I ain't want to hold her up. So because it was so short notice, I knew I wasn't going to make it. So I was just like, well, you go ahead, look at it, take some pictures, or just let me know how I was or whatever, and we'll go from there. So she ended up calling me back like an hour later, maybe not even an hour, maybe 45 minutes. And she was just like, hey, I applied for the apartment or whatever. And I was just like, oh, okay. I was like, so you gonna do the Airbnb or whatever? She was just like, I'm thinking about it. I just wanted to see, you know what I'm saying, if I can get approved because the other place was just taking forever. So I was just like, oh, okay, cool. So we ended up hanging out a little bit after the tour, and then she ended up going back to Montgomery. So she called me or whatever like a couple days later and was like, hey, she was like, I got approved for that apartment. And I was just like, what? That's crazy. Like, I wonder why these other folks taking forever. So I was just like, okay. I was like, so what we gonna do? You know what I mean? And so she was just like, well, I'm gonna go ahead and take the offer to get it or whatever. And I was like, okay, so where do we go from here? And she was just like, well, I'm gonna live in it. Bitch, this just got too motherfucking juicy. I'm gonna catch y'all in the next one.